Welcome back to part 2 of my special edition SatAM review. I'm reviewing Blast to the Past. Now, as I was saying at the end of part 1, Sabina, Dulcie's mom, arrives on the scene to help Sonic and Sally because they helped her. Now, Sabina helps destroy the stealth bots and everything and causes the destroyer to crash, thus preventing it from going into Knothole and destroying Knothole as well. Now, as Sabina helps Sonic and Sally to the ground, helps them put their feet back on the ground, Sally informs Sonic that they got 10 minutes, or whatever time you look at, to get back to Robotropolis and save the kids from being roboticized. Now, apparently, it's also a time frame of trying to get there before Uncle Chuck gets roboticized. Now, time is basically, this is happening, time is speeding along, and it's kind of working against them. And so, as soon as they arrive back in Robotropolis, they bump into Rosie, wondering where the kids are. All right, and then Sally says, I'll explain on the way." They go to where they are, and as Sonic, but they get there just as Uncle Chuck himself is being the second person to be roboticized, because the first person is an average citizen gets roboticized into a robot. Well, Uncle Chuck's the second one to be roboticized, right in front of young Sonic and Sally's eyes. Now, what happens next? What happens next is that Sonic comes in, just like I said, just in time as that is happening, making enough of the distraction for Sally to get the kids to, come towards the ventilation area where she is. She has to grab Sonic because Sonic is kind of the young Sonic, I should say, because he's almost hypnotized in shock about what's happening to his uncle. Robotnik encounters the older Sonic for the first time, asking who is he. Sonic says, "Hey, I'm someone you're gonna learn to hate." And Robotnik replies that he already hates him. And then we find out Sonic is one of the reasons Robotnik has a roboticized arm now. So basically, what happens in the end is they're able to get back to the hut area. Rosie opens up the secret entrance after the older Sonic clears the way, or clears the path for them, allows the kids to go in, and as allows the kids to go through the tunnel into Knothole, but not before Rosie, as she's about to go in, informs Sally that she knows it's really her, that she knows Alicia, because that's the name Sally used in the past to cover up who she really was, knows that she's really the princess, and the reason is because she can't fool her. Now, what happens is Sally says before Rosie leaves to make a promise to her and to never leave Knothole, and in which Rosie, we kind of like reluctantly, is kind of unsure about that, but she's saying, "Please, it's important. Don't leave." And she agrees, and Rosie agrees not to leave, and Rosie ends up going with the kids, and thus, as we find out later on, keeping her promise to stay in Knothole. And the reason is because when Sonic and Sally and the others were kids, Rosie was captured in the Great Forest by SWAT bots and roboticized. I'm guessing the only reason Sally wanted her to stay there is because possibly Rosie's the closest thing that she has to family. I could be wrong. And it also helps keep Sonic in place. Because we find out that Sonic did a few things without permission when he was a kid as well, so who knows. Now, anyway, what happens is that just as that happens, here comes Robotnik with all his SWAT bots and stealth bots, and they start surrounding the place. But Sally, fortunately, has the time stone still and tells Sonic to concentrate this time, don't mess up. And basically, they use the time stones to go back to the present. And as they arrive in the present, they have a little bit of an argument. Sonic saying, "Hey, we went back there," basically saying, "Hey, we went back there to stop Robotnik from taking over, and we failed. We lost. It was not worth it." But Sally has to say, "True, that did happen," in her own way, saying, "True, that did happen, but the positive is we got the roboticizer plans." So in other words, they now know how it was built, and they have a possible way now of building their own de-roboticizer. Now, Sally has to inform Sonic that it, even though we failed here with our main goal, that we will continue to fight in the end until we achieve it. And Sonic says, "Yeah, that's true. You're right. We will do that." And then here comes Tails flying in at the end, and this is where I was talking about earlier. Rosie becomes an important item in this because Tails informs him that Rosie is looking for them because she made a great dinner. Now Sonic, a little confused, thinking, "Wait a minute, Rosie, our nanny, is here?" And Tails has to say, "Yeah, she's always been here. What'd you think?" And Sonic, of course, being Sonic, as Tails is flying away, said, "Well, wait a minute. How did she do that?" And he basically says, "I don't get it." And Sally has to tell Sonic, "Oh, don't worry. I'll explain it to you." And in her own little humorous way and teasing way, in the future. And Sonic basically at the end says, "Oh, please don't do that again, Sally. You're giving me a headache." Now, I hope I made some sense here. I hope I didn't ramble in anything. But that is so far my review and look back on Blast of the Past, the only two-part episode in SatAM history. Now, like I said at the beginning in part one, a lot of you probably feel as though what's Dick should have done for the second season is put this two-parter as the first two episodes. That might be true, but they wanted to do it this way, I guess. I don't know. Excuse me. Now, I want to point out a few things that we saw here, and a few things that we found out that we along with the characters discovered about out in this episode. Now, first of all, we find out that it's Uncle Chuck, not Robotnik, but Uncle Chuck is the one that originally created the roboticizer. Now, the reason being it was in this storyline was to help older people live longer. Unfortunately, all it did was change them and take away their free will. So he had to destroy it, only to have Julian Robotnik transfer the files to the War Ministry. In other words, Julian, by transferring the files, ended up stealing them. He kind of hacked his way into it, I guess you could say. Now, what we also find out in this episode is that the scene we also get introduced for the first time to the king, Sally's father. And we find out that it's when Sally's father approves of the dismantling of the military, if you will, to Julian, aka Robotnik. That Robotnik is not asking for approval of dismantling, but he's actually fooled the king into thinking so he can get the palace attack force ready for the coup-op. Also in this episode, we're introduced to Snively, a younger Snively with hair. But and of course, we're introduced to Rosie, although we never see her for the rest of the season, for the first time. But Emma also introduced to Dulcie's mother, Sabina. But overall, it's a very good episode. I mean, a very good two-part miniseries. And a lot, like I said, a lot of discoveries made, a lot of surprises put in there. And you know what? But you know what really got me is that even though they were right in front of them towards the end of part two, and Sally called Sonic, the older Sonic, by his name, that the younger one didn't get that, didn't understand what was going on, and then vice versa. But again, overall, it was a very good episode, very good two-parter. I know, like I said, a lot of people feel as though it should have been the first one of the second season. But hey, what are you gonna do? But overall, that's my review for SatAM's only two-parter, Blast of the Past. I hope you enjoyed this special edition episode, and I will be back next time with a continuation of season one. And the one I will review next will be Sonic and the Secret Scrolls from season one. I hope you'll be here for that. And if you got any comments, if you want any suggestions, or you want to talk or something like that, just let me know. And I will talk to you all later. Till then, God bless. Take care. And if you got any more information on Blast of the Past, just let me know. And maybe you can fill in some blanks that I forgot about. But until next time, I'm Brian saying God bless, take care, and peace out.